Welcome to the show, Adam.
G'day, how you going? Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Thanks for coming on. I wanted
That's all right, I
to,
feel like it.
I wanted to bring you on today to talk a bit about rehab for personal trainers. I know this is something that isn't really taught in the usual personal trainer course. And this is something that you have experience with and you specialize in. So I think you can share a lot of helpful insights with us today.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to be on. Like I said, we were just talking before. This is the first podcast, not the first one I've been invited to be on. It's probably the third one, but this is the only one that's actually it's actually happened. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's kind of good to good to have a chat. And we've been following you for a good while. It's a shame we couldn't meet face to face because you're only
Yeah.
basically a couple minutes away from me. So
We'll make it happen. We'll
yeah,
make it
maybe
happen.
next time.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, awesome. Well, where I wanted to start is maybe if you could let us know what three of the most common injuries that you treat are, and what do you think the reason that those injuries keep occurring?
Okay. Yeah. So I would say if I could pick three, it would have to, number one would have to be lower back. Then we'll say probably shoulder, just shoulder stuff. And then lately I've seemed to be attracting a lot more. It depends on what clients are, I suppose, want to train with you. So the other one's been like ACL sort of stuff, like just ACL rehab, like after surgery and stuff like that. I seem to be attracting a few people with like a ACL reconstruction and stuff like
Okay.
that. So yeah, which is cool to work with people after surgery and all that. But to answer your second question, without kind of trying to brush it off too much, it does really depend. But to give you like a bit more of a general kind of thing, if you go with the lower back, it's, a lot of people, it's really dependent on what they do for work and whatnot, like say your desk jockeys and stuff like that. A lot of time they are sitting down a lot. And I suppose the people that come into my gym, because I'm not a physio or anything like that, so it's mainly like the clientele that come into here is they're usually, done a lot of training when they're younger. So they've done a lot of like bro splits and, just the type of like bodybuilding type trainings, that sort of thing. Then, life kind of gets ahead. You end up working in a job, whether you're a tradie or an office person, and, you have to work long hours or you're sitting for long hours. And what happens is you're sitting for those, 9 hours in, 8 hours in the day or whatever. Then it's quitting time and then you just go straight to the gym, right? So, and just sitting down and stuff can change how you're going to, exercise in the gym. So a lot of the time people can end up like, in the kind of posture where they're, the lower back's like cranked out in their lower back, or they end up like in these weird positions, which kind of transfer into what they're doing in the gym. So, because I suppose like sitting with a posture that's like overarched isn't, necessarily, you don't want to say if it's bad or good, but if you're going to be lifting like 100 kilos in a squat and you're overarched, it's going to become a problem. So I suppose like without getting too complicated, I think it's more like people, what they're doing during the day, the 8 to 10 hours, and then getting thrown in the gym for 1 hour. And then the technique is getting a bit thrown off, and the exercises that they're doing don't turn into aren't strengthening them. They're actually kind of causing pain or issue.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I suppose because what and it's pretty similar to the shoulder thing. Like I would say it's the same thing. Like they ended up with this kind of like a bit more of a rounded posture. Their back kind of jams up, and then they try to do overhead pressing or they try to do the lat pull down, but it doesn't kind of come out, like the technique doesn't come out as well as what they think it is. So, so obviously if you're going to be, doing bench press with your shoulders rounded and stuff like that, because doing bench press and all that stuff isn't inherently, good or bad. Like as long as you're doing it with the right technique, it's going to strengthen you in the right areas. But if you do it with a rounded chest and stuff, you're going to get muscles that are overworked and then muscles that are underworked. And, that can stir up things and you might get a bit of pain or issue in a certain area. So,
right. Yeah. I think that's definitely the case for me. Like I sit down a lot. So I've actually made sure that I train. Well, beforehand I was training in the middle of the day just to break up the hours that I'm sitting at a desk. And I can definitely tell it's helped a lot. So, but yeah, when I used to be into like the full bodybuilding thing, I think everyone just had a shoulder injury. It seemed all the time.
Yeah. I was one of those guys. So
yeah.
But it was just like, and you always get those guys in the gym that have had the shoulder injury and they'd be like, I've got a shoulder injury, and they've just always had it. Like I never really met many people at Anytime Fitness and those gyms where they're like, I was like, I had a sore shoulder and stuff. And there was no one there to say, I had the same thing, but now I'm killing it now, sort of thing. So it's kind of disappointing. So
is it common for people to come to you after they've, like you just said, like had an injury that they've just had for years and never really treated properly? Yeah,
it's definitely more so, you got when you're talking about injuries, there's usually you've got acute, and then you've got your chronic. So chronic happens over time, slowly but surely, which is all of my injuries. So there's the problem with the chronic is you don't have a cool story to tell people, like you fell off your snowboard or stuff like that. Whereas your acute is, like it was an event, like you got, I slipped over well, that's not a great story, but, you fell off your snowboard or something like that. And then, you've got all these muscle tissue sort of stuff going on. That's usually something I suppose, a physio should be able to help or more of an allied health person because they're just trying to get the tissues back to normal, which should heal over, 6 to 12 weeks or something.
Yeah.
But it's just usually with the chronic pain, not only it's just those issues are kind of developing and they kind of start to, I suppose, affect how they're lifting, and like they kind of grow into something much more than just like a little niggle, So that's mostly get people with the chronic stuff because they need much more than just to have a bit more manual therapy. They need to actually fix like how they're lifting and how they're kind of doing things in their life and in the gym.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So with just an everyday trainer, someone who's had a personal training qualification, what's their responsibility in rehabbing a client's injury? Like how much should they know, or should they just be referring clients out to someone like yourself or a physio or whoever?
Yeah, that's a good question because I always if you've got everyone's got pain or issue, right? You can. Like I said, you go over the gym bros and stuff like that. Everyone's got like some kind of pain in there. They're usually avoiding something. I've got knee pain. Like I've done classes and stuff like back in the day where you're just doing HIIT classes, stuff like that. There's always someone in there that's going to have something going wrong with them, and you have to deal with that there and then. So if referring out isn't really the answer because you run out of clients really quickly, So you need to, it's not a good model, right? So, but, there needs to be, certain red flags that you're like, I can't, you need to have a certain scope, like dependent on how much, experience you've got in there. Like for me, it's, those are the type of clients that I'm chasing. I'm chasing after people with pain who want to get back into the gym. Whereas like, I suppose someone who's just doing general pop and stuff like that, they should be I think they should have some responsibility because if someone's got pain during squats or stuff like that, you can't just avoid that. But I feel like it is every PT's responsibility to treat people as if they've got a pain or an issue, which means loading them when they're ready, when they're moving the right way, and not just avoiding things like that. So like if they do have a pain or an issue and you're a PT where you're kind of like, you might think maybe I should know how to help them out with this, but maybe at this time I can't. Sure, refer them out to a physio to get a bit of soft tissue work, give them some exercises. But I would recommend talking to that physio and finding out how they help them out with that. So you can help, so you can actually learn and help clients with that same issue. You can actually help them without having to refer them out. And it will be much quicker process. People have more, I suppose they'll trust you a lot more and you become a better trainer overall.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so if someone who's listening has got a client who say they come in with a bad knee or something like that, it's not just about, okay, I'll train you, but we're going to avoid using a knee. It's about, refer them on to someone who can help, but then find out how they helped them and learn that way so that they're prepared for the next time someone with a bad knee comes in. Yeah,
because you're going to have a lot of people come in with bad knees, especially like bad knees, bad backs, bad shoulders. It's going to happen. So you otherwise you're just going to be avoiding, certain training, certain clients forever. So it's a great learning curve. I mean, you've got to teach people how to squat and how to deadlift the right way.
Yeah.
And to be honest, most of the time, me just doing that does, fix like most of the issues, just cleaning up technique and cleaning up mobility and stuff like that. So
yeah, definitely building that overall strength. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the process of rehab, I assume there's some steps to help the client progress and develop strength again. Can you explain what that looks like?
Yeah. So I suppose the easiest way, how I explain to clients is, when I think of rehab, I think of in like a 3-step process. So it'd be like, so you got your pain management, which is the early phase, if they're in pain, of course. Then you've got the in-between phase, which is rehab, and then you've got strength. So I suppose we'll think of them less as phases and more of just different aspects of their training, right? So when, to get someone back in after an injury, you're going to be focusing on those 3 things. So in early phase, if they've got pain, so if they've got knee pain, for instance, they've just come out of surgery or something like that for an ACL, it's all very similar. Like they're going to be dealing with a lot of swelling. They're going to be dealing with pain. So it's kind of early phase. So you're going to be focusing on, it might be like, the majority of it's going to be focusing on pain. And then you're going to be doing a little bit on rehab and strength. Okay. But then as they progress, you start to go away from the pain management. The knees got a lot better, and you start to move into focusing more on the rehab and strengthening. So the majority, so you might only be doing like 20% of pain stuff just to kind of get them along, or 10%. But then the rest of the phase is focusing on maybe, half rehab and then, half or less on strength. So it's like in between. But then, as you progress, you keep going forward, then you start focusing on a tiny bit of rehab, which now more becomes a bit of a prehab thing. So it might be just like before you warm up, you start doing more like these mobility and stability exercises to actually, they become less of a rehab thing and more of an actual, they make you better at what you're doing in the strength zone. So you might be spending 20%, 10% on that rehab zone so that you can perform better in that strength zone. So to kind of sum it up, you're going from rehab to performance.
Right.
So the whole idea is to push you, keep ushering that client as soon as possible into that performance zone, because that's life. That's what's meaningful to your body. Because if you keep doing these exercises like these, just TheraBands and all this sort of stuff, it doesn't transfer to your job. It doesn't transfer to heavy lifting. It doesn't transfer to much else. All it is an adjunct to get you into strength training, to build resilience, build robustness, and be better than what you were before the previous injury.
Right. Awesome. So what are some examples of ways that trainers can help with pain management?
So without even knowing like anything about any anatomy or anything like that. You can kind of use the skills that you already have as a personal trainer. So pain management could be just good exercise selection. I mean, it could just be like asking, oh, we did this and that today, or what have you been doing during the week? That's like the least complicated as possible. Just be like, well, what have you been doing all week? Oh, I've been doing a lot of this shoulder press and and the pain's got worse. I was like, oh, okay, well then how about not that you stop doing that stuff altogether, but just give them alternatives. Just what things like, just changing, a difference could be like, rather than holding the dumbbells right out to your shoulders, you can start to do more of a neutral press or something like that.
Right.
So straight away, just tweaking it a little bit, because some people just got just different angles and different ways of or different ways of squatting might just angry up certain ways of doing. Mm-hmm. And you might think that this is kind of dancing around the pain and the issue, which it kind of is, but that is pain management to say. Mm-hmm. So just changing exercise selection, also just asking how often they're training, volume and intensity and stuff like that. That's an easy one that you can just, discuss with your client. But then if you want to go a bit more deeper, like say someone rocks up and they've got a knee problem, or they've got a bit of niggle, knee pain and stuff like that, but you still want to go on with what you programmed for them. Just start learning a bit about foam rolling. Mm-hmm. Usually most of the time, if they've got knee pain or something like that, their quad might be extra sore or their calf might be extra tight or something like that. Just finding a few sore spots around that area, either, above the knee or below the knee. If you just roll that out or stretch that out and that get through to the pain, then that would have taken you, 5-10 minutes, and, you seem awesome to the person. Mm-hmm. You don't have to refer them out, and you can still get on with the leg session. So, yeah.
Great. All right. So what are some injuries that can occur as a result of not treating or mistreating some current injuries?
So, I suppose your injury will just get worse. Your pain can just grow and grow and grow. There's always a chance that, you can, a tear or something like that can happen, but that's still very unlikely. The body is very strong.
Right.
I feel like that stuff only really happens if, more an acute phase, like if you are lifting it has to be under some kind of heavy load, I would generally speaking. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm not a physio, knowing that much about that sort of stuff.
Right.
But I suppose, coming more from, because I deal with mainly the chronic issues, mm-hmm. is just going to grow and grow and grow into, a little niggle can grow into something that's what happened in my past story. I had a little niggle in one shoulder, and that kind of just, it just grew and grew. That then I started getting pains in the rest of my body, because I wasn't really fixing my overall body. In other words, I go see physio and chiro, they'll get rid of the symptoms of the issue.
Yeah.
But really just, they didn't have the time to look at what I was doing outside of that physio room, which was how I was lifting and stuff like that, which, led me down the line of getting issues in other places of my body. So I suppose it's just, if you've got unresolved pain or unresolved issue and you keep on training and keep on dancing around that, there is the likelihood that if you're doing something that's not really optimal in a squat, that you might not be, doing something so optimal in, a bench press, which could lead to other injuries and issues down the line. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. So what are what would you say is the best place for trainers to source further training on injury rehab or even pain management for their clients? You can check out my page. It's not too bad. So, but my page is more directed towards, I suppose, clients and stuff like that, but I still put some useful stuff on there. So, mm-hmm. But as far as there's so much stuff on Instagram that if you're not looking to do a course or something like that, the main people that I like to follow
Squat University is great. If you, good guy was Dr. Jacob Harden, but he doesn't post that much anymore. But if you scroll past through his past posts, they are really good.
Okay.
And there's also another guy that which is actually a mentor of mine, which is Dr. Daniel Kirkbride. This guy in Melbourne. That's helped me out quite a bit. But I think just looking through, you can get a lot of great information on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that. But you just have to go searching for it. The only problem with those things is that, they're only really giving, I suppose, half the story with those sort of things. So, and, every now and then you might try something and it just magically works. But, when you try it again on another client, it may or may not work if you don't really understand why it works. So,
So what about in terms of like courses or further education? Is there any places that you would recommend? Maybe what you've gone to? Yeah.
So what I've done in the past, so a good one that I don't use as much as I used to, which is the FMS. So it's functional movement screen. That's a course I did a long time ago. I quite like their stuff. That really helped me out with early on in my rehab journey, personally and also professionally. But I think it's just where I learned, kind of got my bearings to look at movement and whatnot was just going into the gym and sitting with other trainers that are good at this sort of stuff, because it just takes a little while just to understand what's going on. And that's where I did in my early days, I did my AIPT. And then straight after that, I did like a 1.5 year internship at a place called the Energy Clinic, which isn't in Adelaide anymore, but was. And I just basically learned by just hanging out there with the trainers, seeing what they do, but I also learned from personal experience too. So, so I suppose to sum it up for the courses, the ones that I'd recommend is FMS. They're probably an easy one, but there's also recommend checking out Daniel Kirkbride on Insta. He's got this like an online mentorship for trainers getting into this whole rehab thing, which I've done, and I would highly recommend. It really helped me out with this rehab and just piecing it all together so it makes sense. So yeah.
Awesome. That sounds great. Okay, well, the listeners can find you on Instagram. I know you're very active over there, and it's Adam_movement therapy. You also have a free guide. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yep. So it's just like, this is called the 7 lifts to bulletproof your body after injury.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like a collection of, of the, 7 big lifts that you do in the gym. So like, pull up, deadlift, single leg stuff, lunges and stuff like that. Basically like a reference guide where you can go into there and just check out what are the best cues or how to do those things.
Right.
So that when you're in the gym, you can quickly look it up and check it out. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, that might be helpful for some of the trainers just to refresh their memory or give them some new insights. Yeah.
I mean, it's it'd be definitely good just a little reference guide just to have in your back pocket to use, anytime you want to, really. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show today, Adam. This has been really helpful. I'm sure it's going to really help the trainers that are listening. I hope you enjoyed it.
That's all right. No, very much so. Hope it's just been good to catch up with you again. So, for the first time, sorry. And thanks for having me on.
No worries.